Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Statement of Purpose workshop. My name is Mahnoor Toor, and I will be guiding you throughout this process. Let's begin. So, before we start, a little bit about myself. I am also a Fulbright scholar, graduated last year. I did my master's in economic development from Vanderbilt University. Currently, I'm working as a research analyst at UNDP Pakistan. And the reason I chose to do this presentation is because I myself went through this time. It's very, very nerve-wracking, and because there's so many opinions coming in from so many people, it becomes a bit difficult in terms of what to rely on. So, given that I had this experience, and this experience was something that led me to be able to secure the Fulbright scholarship, I thought it was important to share what I did with everyone so they could also sort of use these guidelines to their benefits. Um, I am assuming that most of you who are considering applying for the Fulbright scholarship are currently in the process of either finalizing their application. So this should be kind of like a good recap in terms of what to consider and what to not consider, and whether you're on the right track. For some of you, you might be completely new to the entire process, and so this might also be helpful for you in terms of understanding what approach you should be taking once you start writing your essay. So I'll try keeping everybody, different types of people, on the same page, and so we can go through this together. So, in my opinion, there's different beliefs about how to secure the Fulbright scholarship, and some of them say that you have to be academically sound, you need to have a really, really good academic background in order to get it. Some people say your GRE score needs to be stellar. Some people say that, your personal statement needs to shine through and sort of impress whoever it is that's reading your essay. And some emphasize on the statement of purpose. I personally believe that the statement of purpose has a big role to play when it comes to being chosen for the Fulbright scholarship. Of course, it's a combination of, all those little aspects, whether it's your profile, whether it's your academic profile, whether it's your GRE score, whether it's your personal statement, all of them matter to an extent. And at the end of the day, it is a combination of all of that that helps you get selected. But I do believe that your statement of purpose is the most essential way to getting the Fulbright scholarship, because that is you kind of giving out a statement which helps them choose and see whether you are consistent with their beliefs or not. So it's very important to be able to sort of convince them that whatever you want to do is something that matches with the values and the teachings and the reasons behind the Fulbright scholarship. So let's begin. So a little bit about what the statement of purpose specifically is. It's a short essay that explains overall who you are, but mostly what you want to do and why you want to do it. So when we talk about the who you are section, so it kind of helps your personal statement. In your personal statement, you kind of explain who you are as a person. And so that is a lot more personal, as the name suggests. In your statement of purpose, you also kind of highlight who you are, but it has to be more so who you are professionally, who you are intellectually, who you are academically, and how your background kind of supports what you will be wanting to pursue once you start your master's or your PhD. And then we move on to what you want. This is where you have to be extremely specific. We will get a little bit more into this later as well, but broadly speaking, this is basically what you intend to study, what your research will entail, and what you ideally want to achieve in your graduate school or your graduate degree. This needs to be done very specifically, very concretely as well. And then there's what you want. So, what is something that you want out of this degree? What is something that you want out of this scholarship? Because it is the Fulbright scholarship, but we also have to understand the purpose of Fulbright. It's basically a cultural exchange sort of a program where you sort of represent yourself as an ambassador of Pakistan. And so you want to sort of show them what you want out of this, and at the end of the day what they will also achieve by selecting you as their representative. So here you kind of have to state out your motivation, the problem that you want to solve, and that problem, what gap there is that exists in your country, and then what is your drive, what is your character, what is your motive to achieve those goals. So it's kind of like your professional manifesto. It must specifically show your vision, and it shouldn't just be a list of your resume. This is a very common perception where people think that you basically just have to kind of translate your existing resume as in like paragraph forms or in like a broad essay, and that's not how it is. There is a certain strategy and a manner in which you should be able to articulate what your goals are and what research it is that you are intending to do. Okay. So before we move forward, I think there needs to be, it's very important to understand how the SOP and the personal statement are linked. So what is essentially the difference between them? Because if you don't understand that, you won't be able to write two very different but also linked, very properly linked articles, essays together. So before we move ahead, we need to understand what it is, and it can be a bit confusing if you're somebody who has in the past applied to universities, perhaps in your undergrad or even your master's if you've tried to apply, or a PhD. A lot of universities use these terms, statement of purpose, personal statements, very interchangeably. So in our heads, it's very easy to assume that, oh, it's pretty much the same thing, you know. But it's very important to highlight the differences between them and understand why they're not the same, right? Your statement of purpose, basically, the focus is basically to identify what your research interests are, what your academic goals are, what your career objectives are. And even in doing that, you have to sort of ensure that you link that to who you are as a person, right? And why these research interests or these goals or objectives, how they differentiate you from someone else, and how you would be able to do it better than someone else would, because of your professional experience, because of your your career, because of your academic experience, and because of your interests or the way that you've been groomed, etc., etc. Your personal statement, on the other hand, is more of a personal journey, which kind of helps you grow as a character, and why you are the way you are. Yes, they may sound a bit similar, but the statement of purpose is where instantaneously you will link these, the way you are, you will mention it a little bit, and then you will instantly sort of link it to your research interests and why you are driven to pursue um a certain subject. Then we have your tone. In your personal statement, you can, to an extent, use flowery language, because you can be a little bit dramatic because it's personal to you. There's a narrative that's sort of set behind it, and then you are allowed to be emotionally authentic, to the point where it's, of course, not too much. You have to find the right balance when you're writing your personal statement. But it's very important for your statement of purpose to be formal, to be analytical, to be professionally driven, because that is the intention that you will take with you once you go off and go on to pursue your degree. So it has to be extremely specific. There's often like confusion in terms of whether how specific do I have to be. I've gone through a couple of statement SOPs, and a lot of them are very broad, a lot of them are very generic, a lot of them are they focus on a very big problem, and there's no sort of deep dive into that problem that kind of proves that you're interested. So the advice here would be, to sort of stick to one subject line and then do a deeper dive within it, rather than, highlighting a plethora of problems. Um, so, for instance, when I was writing my statement of purpose, I wanted to pursue a degree in economic development, and I was very clear on mentioning that. My first sentence of my opening paragraph was that I want to pursue a master's in economic development. And within that, I mentioned what my focus topics were. I wanted to understand the extractive nature of institutions and why they are the way they are. And then, along with that, I also wanted to understand the differences in the provinces within Pakistan, how these institutions in Pakistan have sort of led to the difference that exists economically, socially, politically, within, among the states within Pakistan. In doing that, I also sort of brought my, experience in terms of, doing multiple projects in university related to that particular topic. And then I talked about a book that kind of sparked my interest, in extractive institutions. And that is what sort of, built my interest into understanding, and kind of being sure why I wanted to pursue this particular subject. So make sure your story sounds, authentic. It's not just a generic set of paragraphs that, tells the reader that, you're interested in so and so and so topic, and, that's what you want to do. Tell them you want to do whether you want to do a qualitative research or if you want to do a quantitative research. If you're somebody who has written a thesis, perhaps you might have experienced writing like a research statement or a problem statement. So your statement of purpose should include a portion of that. So you need to point out your interests and the experiences behind your interests, but then you also have to specifically mention what you intend to do, right? So then we have the content. Here, you will basically be specific. You will talk about what it exactly is that you want to study, why, this specific program is something that you're interested in, and what are your specific learning goals, and how will they contribute, in terms of when you head back to Pakistan, how will they help you implement them back when you head to Pakistan? Because the idea here is that you pick a research gap that is existing within Pakistan, and then you take on that research gap, you build upon it, you build why you want to study that particular research gap, and then how it'll in turn help you implement that in back when you return to your country, which is a very big emphasis. They place a very big emphasis on that, and they specifically want to know why you want to do something. So you have to be very, very specific when you talk about your learning goals. And then also when you talk about what you will do and how you will do it. So I hope this was a clear sort of distinction between writing the statement of purpose and the personal statement. So your study objective is basically just supposed to be your statement of purpose is basically like a study objective, and it's supposed to be a focus plan of action, whereas the personal statement sort of just tells your story and your heart, and that is where you can sort of emotionally capture the reader's attention, and that before they move on to reading your statement of purpose. Okay. Now that we've understood the distinction between the two, what are some of the things that you need to include in your SOP? Your SOP should ideally explain why you want to pursue your graduate studies, what your specific research goals are, what your experience is in that field. A lot of people that I know who apply, I mean, there's people who apply with just a bachelor's degree and little to none experience, in their career. A lot of people have a lot of experience, even though their bachelor degree is in a different subject. So there's different people from different backgrounds that are applying. So your experience can literally, as long as it's authentic, it can literally be you taking a course in university that inspired you a lot, to even reading a book that inspired you a lot, to perhaps interning at, an economic research think tank which inspired you to pursue what you plan to pursue. So it could be these, you don't have to have career experience per se, which is a very common misconception because I did not have career, an ample career sort of experience or professional experience because I applied right out of bachelor's. So I was in my last year of college when I was applying. And so the only sort of experience that I had was my teacher's assistantship, my research assistantship, this internship that I had done, being a part of my college's economics society, and doing all of that to sort of advance why I wanted to pursue what I wanted to pursue. So you do not have to, worry about having sort of, a professional experience in a particular field. And so once you highlight all of that, you have to also mention how this degree would help you achieve your career goals, and then how you would be able to sort of implement them once you are back in Pakistan. How the Fulbright will be able to help you advance your career goals. So all of that matters. And you have to ensure you mention all of that. So you start off by being specific about what you want to pursue, what it is that you want to pursue, why is it that you want to pursue it, what experience you have in it that would help you to achieve it, and then at the end of the day, how this would help you achieve your career goals, and how it can help you create an impact in Pakistan once you return, and how all of this sort of aligns with the Fulbright cultural exchange program. So while you are explaining all of this, you just need to make sure that your SOP should include your academic background. You should touch upon your research, a particular course that you took, a particular project that you did, a particular book that you read, a particular movie that you watched. Just please be authentic. What we try to do initially when we start writing our SOPs is that we research and we look around at, different sample SOPs or SOPs that are written by other people, and then we try to gather the best ideas from all of that, and then from all of those essays, and then compile all of those into one essay, which sounds nice, but then you just lose authenticity. It's not you. It doesn't seem legit. If you are, striving to look like you have the best and the best and the best of experience and everything, that is not authentic. You have to be real. And I think that is what people miss when they're writing their statement of purpose. Some people take months and months writing their SOPs, but they still fail to, get the scholarship for many reasons whatsoever. But then one of them could be because they're just not being authentic. They're just trying too hard to be who they think an ideal Fulbright candidate should be. No, the idea is to just fully be yourself and be honest in your passion and what it is that you want to achieve. So within that premises, you mentioned what your research is, what your future plans are, what motivates you, and what, sort of drives you to pursue a certain kind of degree. And then you have to mention why you think you and the program are a good fit, and why Fulbright is, the best fit for this. Because then if you're simply mentioning reasons but not letting them know how they would help you, then you're better off just applying for a degree by yourself. Why is it that you want the Fulbright scholarship? I mean, of course, there's many reasons, it's a fully funded scholarship, it's an experience of its own, but then you also have to sort of keep in mind that you're a representative of that program. And so your goals and your objectives should align with that of the USCFP's goals and objectives. So the point here is that this one document should include your past, your present, your future, and this should be done in a very coherent sort of a manner, which makes sense. It's not just, random points splattered onto a paper. It should make sense. It should be coherent. It should be cohesive, and it should be something that shows your originality. So here's the overall approach in terms of when you are writing your statement of purpose. You will start off after, mentioning your research interests and what it is that you want to do. You will start off with what you did in the past. This will include your academic foundation that you built, your research and projects that you have undertaken, the skills and experiences you have. What are some of the challenges that you have faced and you have overcome? And then you move on to the present. You will mention very specifically the gaps that you've identified and why Fulbright or a certain program that you're planning to pursue, why it will fill it. And then why now is the critical moment. You have to understand you have to sort of convey the urgency of a certain of the program it is that you want to study, whether it's, climate change, whether it's economic development, whether it's water availability, etc., etc. All of that needs to be conveyed in a way where you are able to convey the urgency of that particular issue. And then you have to sort of show to them that you are ready to contribute and make your and like make your contribution to it. So then you will talk about the future. The future will include your concrete career and research plans, how that will impact your field and country, how the US will help you, implement that, and how you will apply your degree within the country. And one very important element that you have to include would be your long-term vision and contribution. That is how you would conclude your SOP. You will talk about what your long-term plans are. And that will definitely be that I plan to return to my country, and after pursuing so and so program, I will implement it within these gaps that I had identified earlier. For me, it was what I am doing right now. I had said I would like to work as a research analyst or a consultant in an international organization to work on research that, helps to reduce inequality and to promote the sustainable development goals. So this is how specific you have to be. It can't just be, I will help my country, I will help people get out of poverty. It has to be very specific. And I had previously interned with a government organization. I used that as an example to sort of advance why I wanted to pursue, work as a consultant. It's because initially I had also, worked with the government, and I want to sort of step into that a little bit more and understand it more. Now, SOPs it's all about building a narrative, right? You do that in your personal statement in sort of an emotionally driven way. In your SOP, you also have to build a narrative. And that is again why I will state that it cannot just be a translation of your CV or your resume. The narrative needs to have a function, right? The narrative needs to demonstrate your academic and professional vision. You have to make sure that once you write everything down on a piece of paper, you should read it out to yourself and ask yourself whether these are the boxes, whether these boxes are being ticked. What, right? One is that you have to make sure, does my SOP demonstrate my academic and professional vision? Will the reader be able to see that academic and professional vision? Do I sound motivated in what I want to do? Is it too little or is it too much? Is there the right balance there? Am I being clear in what I want, or is it simply just like, oh, I want to make sure that there's no poverty in Pakistan. That's it. No. Is it specific? Is it clear? And then does it align, very importantly, with Fulbright's mission? You might be wanting to do something that is not really, it might be an amazing thing. It might be extremely commendable what you are striving to do, but does it align with Fulbright's mission? Make sure you answer yourself that question. And then have you tied your narrative, has it tied your qualifications and your goals and your impact potential together? Or is it just random made up experiences or random made up interests that you're sort of putting together, and then they both don't even align together? Is everything, coherently aligned and linked to each other? Yeah, to each other. And then just understand that the Fulbright, you do not get the Fulbright just because you have stellar grades or a stellar GRE. This is where you get to show your potential. Your SOP is where you get to show your potential. And so this is that chance for you to show who you are beyond your grades and recommendations. And I would say the more time you give to your SOPs, the more it is likely for you to derail in terms of just getting confused and overthinking everything and second guessing everything. And rather than doing that, it would be better if you just sort of write down your ideas and how you feel and what you feel, because all of us have certain research interests. All of us have a certain set of research interests, and all of us are passionate. It just needs all those, thoughts and all those motivations just need to be sort of refined and need to be developed in a way where you can also convince what you feel at heart to someone else. And so this is your chance to show that, right? Now, when you talk about the problem it is that the specific problem it is that you're trying to address, right? There's four key questions that you have to answer. So the first one is, what is the problem that you want to solve? In your head, you might have a very big problem, a very broad problem. Talk to yourself before select the problem it is that you want to talk about. The problem will most probably be broad. Delve into that problem. Delve into it. Dig deeper, and then you will come up with a specific problem within that problem that you would want to solve, because that is a lot more realistic. You're not Superman who would go ahead and solve, just fix inequality. No, but what is it within that problem that you might be striving to solve, right? For me, it was the the way our institutions were shaped. So I wanted to look into the institutions within Pakistan, how those institutions were formed, what happened to those institutions over time, how they grew, and what their role is currently in, promoting economic development within Pakistan. So that is one aspect, literally one aspect or one element that I picked that I wanted to, build upon. Then you talk about why you are interested in solving that problem. Here you will talk about your experience. Here you will talk about the book that you read. Here you will talk about the conversation that you had with a specific someone. Here you will talk about, one thing that helped you sort of just kind of convinced you that you have to do something about this, right? And then you go on, and this can be a multiple set of reasons. It doesn't have to be one reason. It can be multiple reasons, but not too many reasons for them to feel that this is just made up, this is just too good to be true. It cannot be too good to be true. I mean, multiple things don't happen to you to be able to, I mean, unless it's very rare that this would happen to you. It can be one or two things that made you think or ponder over a certain problem, and that is okay. You do not have to be, stellar at something. It can literally just be a course that you took from your instructor, and the instructor really inspired you. It can literally just be that one paragraph that you read from a book. It can literally be any of that. And then the course that you took additionally that like help you to gain your that helped you be even more interested in the problem. And then it's sort of just like a series of all of these things together, a combination of all of them. And then you talk about Fulbright. You need to tell them why they will help you in achieving your problem. How will this program help you solve this problem? For me, I wanted to study the inequality within, among the states within Pakistan. For me, a very discerning factor was that states within the US, they are literally united. They are so different, yet they are so united. Every state has a different thing to offer, and they all do so very beautifully. And then ultimately, what happens is that It literally is the United States of America. So despite having these despite having being different, what are the instruments or what are the tools that these states use? How are its institutions shaped in the current day? Of course, there's history that plays its role, but what are some of the tools that it uses currently to ensure that this sustains? There might be something within that research that I can pick up from these institutions and perhaps apply it to Pakistan. Because we are so keen on comparing Pakistan with similar states, whether it's India, whether it's Bangladesh, which makes sense to do it because we've had similar trajectories, it's still important to identify certain tools or certain instruments that might be used in other countries, such as the US, that we could implement back in our country once we're back. If there are any questions, you can put it in the chat box. You can put your questions in the chat box, and then I can answer them once I'm done. Okay. And then the fourth point is that the question that you will answer yourself and make sure that it's there. What proof shows that you're 100% ready? This is where you will tell them why you are so motivated or why you are so keen on, pursuing a certain degree and what the US has to offer that you will be able to get, you will be able to attain and implement it once you're back. Okay. So before you write a single word, try to make like a box like so, where you make sure that you know what you want to do. Sometimes you might have a degree that is amazing, aligns with the Fulbright program, but there might really not be, programs within the US that offer that course. So then there's no point because if that course is not being offered and there's not a lot of universities that offer it as such, then there's no point, right? So before you understand what your interests are, as I previously said, you'll ask yourself what problem you're interested in, and then you'll dig a little bit deeper. This is where, this comes in. So you look at different university programs and see which one, aligns the most with your goal. It doesn't have to 100% align with your goal. Again, it's not about being perfect. Everything does not have to be perfect. It has to be honest and authentic. So you see which universities offer this program, and that again is such a good supporting point for your research, your statement of purpose, where you are highlighting why the US is important. You would say that the US has very, a lot of research going on in this topic, and I think it would help me immensely once I, join a certain program. So every school differs. You have to, look for specific prompts, what points they cover within a certain topic, and make sure it aligns with you. And then you sort of research the program, right? What the program is truly about, what the focus is, what kind of faculty there is, what research, the faculty members are pursuing, and how that can sort of help you with your research as well. So it doesn't just have to be the program itself, but it can also be the faculty members, the academics and the scholars there, how they could help you advance your research as well. Or you could look at different resource labs for, resources there, for instance, labs, professors, research groups. You can literally name a specific professor, that inspired you. You can name a specific author that has written a book that teaches in a university there. You know, it this is super impressive because it shows the reader that you really have done your research. It hasn't just been, random bits that you've added to make yourself look fancy. But once you tell them that you've researched, you show them that you've researched, that is extremely impressive. And of course, before that, you just ask yourself first, right? You ask yourself that broad question, and then you go on to do your research to make sure that your SOP is not simply generic. It is specific to you and and the Fulbright will program will be able to help you pursue it. Okay. So now let's sort of move on to how you will. I mean, initially I had given sort of a broad idea as to how you would go on and write your SOP, but now let's move on to how you would actually start writing your statement of purpose, right? Um, of course, it's pretty obvious that the opening hook, the way you start your essay, is what makes or breaks, the reader's interest. So you have to make sure that you are very, very careful in writing that, in that you are making sure that you capture the reader's attention. Number one, it is a lot more important to be direct than to just sound catchy, because in just trying to sound catchy, you can really overdo it and put off the reader. Be direct, be honest, and then try to be catchy, right? There are a lot of cliches that people used, and I remember when I was applying for the UGrad program, I remember I started off with a very cliched sort of line, which was very similar to what I've written here, where the first cliche says, "Since I was a child, I always wanted to." Everyone uses that. I also used it. I'm sure maybe within the first step of in the first step of writing your essay, you wrote that line as well. So try to avoid that cliche. You can the best way to sort of do this is to just sort of write down the roughest essay, write down anything that comes to your mind, and then think about refining it later. Once you have everything down on a paper, that'll sort of help you to establish or to build that opening hook that would help you that would help you impress the reader. Another one is I have always been interested in, or another one could be I like helping people and society, or something like, oh, Pakistan has a plethora of problems, you know. Uh, no, a better approach would be to be specific, because that is what will make you different from other people, right? So the first one, which is where I sort of did, was I aim to pursue a master's in economic development to identify pivotal macroeconomic factors that hinders Pakistan's growth. So I didn't touch upon the broad problems of Pakistan. For me, my focus was more on macroeconomic factors. I went on from here to explain what macroeconomic factors I think, or I hypothesize, hinder Pakistan's growth the most. The institutions was one of the major reasons that I built on, because I was trying to be specific, as specific as I could. And so and as soon as they read your statement, they should be able to understand that, okay, this is what this person wants, rather than them having to look between the lines to understand what it is that you really want to do. It's better that you just hand it to them on a plate. So state your main purpose in the very first paragraph and try to be specific. Okay, so I'm getting more messages. Okay. So literally, the purpose of this workshop is to help you understand that it's honestly not that complicated. It's honestly not that deep. Just be yourself. And I swear, I believe that is what helped me in getting the scholarship, because I remember when I was applying, I did not have much time. I had like a month or so, a little bit over a month, in which I gave the GRE, and I wrote. I didn't have time to make up stuff or to do anything. It was literally just me putting myself on a paper, refining it to an extent, and then submitting my application. And of course, luck plays a role. Of course, luck plays a role. I mean, there's so many applicants there. But at the end of the day, we do whatever we can to the best of our abilities, right? Okay. Now, when you're talking about your motivation, right? You have now you have stated what you are, what it is that you want to do. You have, you did that as soon as you started writing. That was the opening hook. You told them, this is exactly what I want to do. They know what you want to do now. They would be happy with it. And now you will talk about your motivation, right? What is your motivation for applying? Again, genuine, specific, and authentic. That is literally all it is. Um, these are the four elements you will keep in mind. You will talk about what inspired you. Doesn't have to be something great, doesn't have to be something groundbreaking. It can literally be a book, it can literally be a chat, it can literally be anything, It can also be a big deal. I mean, it doesn't have to be small always, right? So you don't, if something actually happened to you that was groundbreaking, talk about it, but just make sure you do it in an authentic manner. But also make sure that it's you. And then your academic connection. This is, something that's really important. You can talk about how academically your interest, applies, how academically what you want to do, how it is linked to your academic experience. But I've also met a lot of applicants who, they had a bachelor's in, say, physics, but they want to pursue watershed management. That is not a problem. That is literally not a problem. It is nice to have an academic background that is linked to your research interest, but if you don't have that, that is also completely fine. I knew a person who had their undergrad in physics and then they wanted to pursue watershed management, right? And that was literally because, I mean, the person was being very honest with me. They had interned in an institution that a government institution that looked to watershed management, and this person had also been a part of the climate justice society in their college, so all of that experience is what kind of motivated him to pursue watershed management. And then he asked me whether, he doesn't understand how his academic experience links to that. And I mean, I said there's no problem because you have sufficient experience and your story is true. And you can mention that in your personal statement, that it is your experience that makes you want to pursue this particular interest. And it's completely understandable. It's completely original and authentic for a person to pursue a master's or a PhD degree in something that is different to what they did in their bachelor's. And that is so common. I mean, that is not something that would, convince the reader to not consider you at all. It is the honesty again that they're looking for and the authenticity. And then you talk about your host country choice, which is why you want to choose America or the United States for this university. You have to show a deliberate reason. And again, there's a lot of generic statements as to this as well, like, America is the very progressive country and, all of that stuff. But it would be ideal to write something that is unique. For instance, you can say that, America, I mean, people go on to say that, oh, research in America is great. Maybe you can dive into it a little bit deeper and see what kind of research that is being done. You see what kind of research there is that's being done in your subject of interest, and talk about that. Talk about an institute that you love in America, that you think is, working really well in America, and you would want to learn from that specific institution, or, talk about a certain think tank or a movement, perhaps, a group, any sort of group, or any sort of a group of body um, that inspires you. So it has to be a very specific one. And I would say this choice of host country, this choice of choosing the US would be linked, should be, I would say you should choose a specific reason, because that is what would really impress the reader. Because they would have probably gone through a lot of essays that say America is, a lovely country, the research there is really good, the faculty is very amazing, yada yada yada. I mean, that's very boring. Okay. Okay. So now, you have talked about your research interest, you have mentioned the motivation, and now you will talk about a little bit about your academic slash professional or background that helps you support your interest, right? Most of the time, your academic background or your career background is linked to what you want to do, right? So you will highlight your major and your field of specialization. you will, if you have done some research or, written a thesis, go ahead and highlight that. The courses that you studied, like for me, the things that made me interested in my subject of interest was because of a book that I read and because of a course that I took. You can write the specific course that you took, you know, you can talk about the awards and scholarships or the distinctions that you've gotten before. I was general secretary for one of for the economic society at my university, and I wrote that. And then you also talk about any self-directed learning efforts that you've made. For me, this is where the book that I read came, that helped build my interest even more. Any sort of project management and leadership that you did that help you. So all of these points basically have to be linked to the fact that they advanced your research interest. It can't just be like a random sentence that said that, oh, I was a leader in so and so society. It has to be something along the lines of my leadership in so and so society helped me understand this topic even better and this element or this aspect of my topic, which is why I want to pursue it, you know? And then also some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcome them. For instance, you can talk about if you're someone who's interested in research, you can talk about how research can be really, really difficult in Pakistan, how your experiences as being a survey lead in the work that in the job that you're working in, how that challenge, is something that you want to work towards more and you want to overcome that challenge as well. You want to make sure that research is more robust in Pakistan, it's more smooth in Pakistan. What are some of the tools that the US has that you could sort of learn and pick up and then implement them back when you return to your home country? So it can literally be a combination of everything that is you. So the goal ideally here is to connect your past academic work to your future goals, and every achievement, every experience, every course that you took, every award that you won, every project management exercise that you carried out, all of it must be linked to them somehow advancing your research interest. I cannot just be there as a single liner. No, it has to be linked to your research interest. For me, I remember I was working as a research assistant and I was assisting my professor with certain simulation models on income and inequality and poverty indicators. And we were looking at the highest data, which is basically it's a survey, it's a household economic income and economic survey that I worked on, and that can sort of help the reader understand that, oh, you actually worked on survey data, you've actually worked on research, and that is good experience for you. That would help you once you are pursuing your PhD or you're pursuing your master's, right? So this is something that you also show. This is where you show them that I am 100% ready to pursue my master's, right? I have some sort of experience in research and, something that I want to pursue in the future. That'll help me with something I want to pursue in the future. And so I am the ideal candidate that you're looking for. Okay. So then you talk about your study when you talk about your study objective, you and the general paragraph structure when you would be writing your SOP, you would talk about it would basically be an essay with 5 to 6 paragraphs. It would make sure you would have to make sure that it has a logical flow. It has to be, again, specific, realistic. You have to make sure that it's connected to your background. It's not just, you're not just like randomly stating facts from different, just so you can show them the amount of experience. Like they won't be impressed if you've worked in like 6 to 7 projects. No, it has to be like, oh, what did that one specific project teach you, right? So it's a more realistic that way, and it's more quality over quantity that way. So you start with your introduction, which is your current academic status, your field of study, private objective, your background and motivation, then your specific learning objectives, and then why you are a good fit and what your future programs are. That would be your last paragraph, where you would talk about why you choose this specific program and how it'll help you apply your knowledge and to your career and your community afterward, which is where you will tell them your 5-year plan once you're back in Pakistan, which is what they're interested in knowing as well. And when you are talking about the future impact, this is the outcomes. This should be your last paragraph. This would be how you will benefit your host country. Again, what you will contribute to the academic and cultural life of the country. Because again, Fulbright is a cultural exchange. You are a representative. What is something that you will give to the US, and what is something that you will be bringing back to your country, how you will benefit your home country. And in here also your plans have to be concrete. Sure, they understand that plans can change, no worries at all, but what is it that you want to do at the moment, given your research interest? Write it down. If you want to work at World Bank, say it. If you want to work as a consultant, say it. Do not just give a very generic sort of a statement where you say that, oh, I want to work and research at in economic think tanks. No, you specify them, you know, show them that you're unique. And then you talk about how that'll benefit your community. If you're working on, tools for disability, how that will, help your community, and how you will help other students, how you will mentor people around you and apply your skills locally as well. For instance, I had written that upon my return, I intend to link remittances to education policy to ensure children in rural areas reach the secondary to intermediate transition, where highest returns of human capital can would occur. And currently, I am working on human capital development, and my research in the US really did help me understand that. Okay. Now let's just go on to, and discuss overall structure options that of course, you have to be authentic and you have to do what you think is best, but this is like a general sort of a guideline that you can follow. A can be sort of like a story-based technique, which is what I did, where you kind of tell a story, but you do it formally, not like a personal statement, but you talk about your problem, talk about your experience and your academic experience and your professional experience as a story, and then kind of, talk about how a certain program is the right next step, how you will contribute it, and then kind of mention your statement of readiness. The second structure option would be your statement of objectives. So you basically write this very formally, which is also completely fine. You state your goals very specifically, which is also what I did. I did sort of a combination of the both. See, it's not really like a very stringent sort of a structure that you have to follow. It's very free flow to an extent, right? And then you talk about why you're qualified to investigate certain problems, your academic background, research experience, all of it tied together, along with why a certain school is good for you, why Fulbright is good for you, and what you plan to do in the future, and how Fulbright will help you do that. These are some of the common mistakes that you should avoid. Again, do not confuse your statement of purpose with your personal statement. It's not your SOP is not your life story. It's more of an academic plan. So once you write it, make sure you reread it and ensure that that is what it is. Then vagueness. Vagueness is what happens when you pick and choose the best, what you think might impress the reader. So it's just picking and choosing random facts. It kind of does not help you be more coherent or consistent. There's no story that's being developed. It's just facts that you were, just putting there to impress someone, saying stuff like, I want to help society, I want to solve poverty, I want to, you know, I want to help with economic development, yada, yada, yada. No, you have to be specific. That is what will make you unique. Who will you work for? How? When will you do it? What resources and what tools will you use, and how the US will help you, how Fulbright will help you. And then again, generic templates. Just this is why I avoid giving specific templates because it's not authentic, right? Copying an SOP again is not the right way to go about it. Make it yours. Make sure the reader is able to identify you as a person through your research, your SOP. And then cliches and quotes, please don't do that. It's not impressive. Um, do not use dramatic language. The reviewers, again, are reading hundreds of essays. Just be you, simply. So before we end this workshop, this is kind of like a final quick formula. Most of it is you, honestly, just to be yourself, be extremely authentic. Um, But yeah, you talk about your past. What have you prepared, your academic foundation, research experience, the skills you've developed, certain challenges you've overcome. They can be academic, they can be professional, they can be personal to an extent as well. And then you talk about your present, the problem, which has to be very specific with it. You talk about your problem after doing a deep dive, doing your research, why the program uniquely fits you, why the US, and why Fulbright, why now is the right time, how are you ready to contribute, and then the future, which is what you will do for your field, your specific career and research plans, how they will specifically impact Pakistan or your community, the application of your degree, and then long-term systemic change. You have to be very specific about it. You make sure that your tone is formal, it's focused and it's professional. And once you reread your essay, just ensure most of you might have, if you're applying by now, I think the deadline is in 5 days now. Every sentence, just reread your essay and make sure that it's something that is impactful, something that is specific, and something that is fit. The rest will, of course, be on your luck, but if you can make an effort to be as authentic as you can, that would be the ideal way to go about it. Okay, so this was the end of the workshop. I will now look to your questions and quickly answer them. Okay, so if I want to do my master's in physiotherapy, but if I apply public health, that is a bit different from my own degree, then I would be. mm, okay. So Arisha wants to do her master's in physiotherapy, but she is applying in public health, and that she says is a bit different from my own degree. Then I would still be able to talk about my personal experiences or do I have to stick to the program I'm applying in? I would say that, in my opinion, I would say you should talk to someone who has pursued public health. And you should also, once before you start applying, I think the ideal way to go about this would be to look at different university programs within the US that offer public health. You see what courses they have, what are their research objectives, all of that. It's always available on the websites. You can do like a quick Google search, and then you can see how public health programs in the US can be linked to physiotherapy for you. If there is a link there, I mean, that would be great for you. Yeah, so I think the best way to go about this would definitely be to do your own little research and see how it works, perhaps talking to a public health specialist as well. But again, um, look at both the supply and the demand. Does the US have certain programs that offer public health in a way that can cover physiotherapy? It doesn't have to be 100% fit, but if it is linked in a certain way, why not? Okay, more questions? Mention the specific US universities. Okay, so when we talk about being specific, I know people who have mentioned programs, specific programs in the research statements, specific labs and research statements. There is no harm in doing that. See, the idea is that it'll not put them off. It'll not be like, oh, they will not, the readers will not be like, oh, since we cannot, get her into Harvard, but she has mentioned a lab that is in Harvard, we will not accept her research statement. It'll be more like, okay, she has really done her research, she is really really passionate, and even if she doesn't get into Harvard, perhaps she can get into somewhere else which might help her in a similar way. So you should definitely be specific. You should definitely talk about the faculty. You should definitely talk about a lab that really inspires you, and it doesn't exist in, you should talk about these interests in a manner where these resources are not present in Pakistan, because that is why you want to go to the US, right? Because this specific lab exists there, but does not exist in Pakistan. That is the differentiating factor for you. So I would encourage you to mention that, because people do mention research labs. People do mention, I mentioned faculty members' names, and that still helped me secure the scholarship. So I think you should be as specific as you can. My current SOP2 starts with from a very young age. I have been fascinated by. Yes, I completely agree. In your head, you think you sound very flowery and you sound very different, but unfortunately, everyone else is doing that. Mm, You will be provided with a recording of this workshop as well. Can it start with a short professional introductory line about oneself? Of course it can. There doesn't have to be one specific way to write your SOP. You can start with, you can simply just start with mentioning this is a particular program I want to study, or you can also start this way where you talk about, your professional introductory line about yourself. Go 100% you can. I just want to know if writing SOP using AI is also acceptable. See, AI should be there to assist you. So it should be there to an extent, because it's odd to not use AI, but of course it cannot be completely AI generated. Or I would also recommend to, frame the question, the way you structure your sentences. I would recommend you do it on your own rather than asking AI to do it for you. It can help you with ideas, it can help you articulate your ideas, but the structure, make sure it's you, because now it's easy to tell that it's AI. So you have to ensure that you do the effort yourself and just sort of use AI with ideas and sort of help you generate your ideas and organize your ideas. So yes, you can use it, but only to an extent. If we already mentioned the motivation or what actually led us to our degree in our personal statement, should we mention it again in our SOP? Or you definitely should. Your personal statement and your research, your SOP are primarily very similar to each other. Um, but in your research statement, your statement of purpose, everything has to be linked to your research interest. So even if there's a motivation, you should you can rewrite that motivation, but you have to do it in a way where you link it with your research interest, right? And if you've mentioned it to a greater extent in your SOP, you can do it in a different way, or maybe in a smaller sentence, to sort of just help the two connect each other, right? Because they should ideally be linked to each other. How can we effectively incorporate all of this within the standard SOP word limit? This is a very good question. The idea is, the way I went about it is to start off by literally just jotting down ideas and then later work on the structure. You will most probably have a longer SOP. Of course, you will exceed your word limit. Think about the word limit towards the very end. Reduce from wherever you can once you're done. And then That's just how it goes. You sort of just keep on refining it as you go. When applying to different schools, should I use the same personal essay for every application, or is it better to customize it for each program? 100 specify it to each 100% specify your personal essay for each application. That is what helps you stand out. um, I know there's a lot of universities that people generally apply to, so it's definitely a lot of hard work. So the main structure, the broad structure of your essay should be the same, but then you can change different aspects of it to match or to be in accordance with the university that you plan on applying to, right? But this, so yes, you can definitely do that. Okay, I'm just going through all the questions. If you want to get your SOP reviewed by me, you can reach out to me on my LinkedIn. It's the same name as I have written over here. You would be able to find me. And if I have the time, I will definitely go through it. Get review from the SOP. Is it a good idea to get your SOP reviewed by AI? I don't think so. I mean, you can get it reviewed in terms of the way you organize your ideas, but only to an extent, because the more you consult AI, I feel like the more it'll be, the less authentic it'll be. What are your recommendations to applicants who have below par academics but have relevant work experience and are passionate? I would say go ahead and apply. The Fulbright is an amazing program in which it does not to an extent care about your GPA or your academics that much. You have to be like, I believe being average or slightly above average is not bad at all. I mean, you should definitely go ahead and apply because it's a combination of so many other things. And the main point, I believe, is that your research goals align with that of Fulbright. If you are able to do that, that should really get you the scholarship. Which part of SOP should have this covered? And I did a BBA and the degree did not require a thesis. Instead, a project was done. What one should do if they do not have any research experience? See, a research experience does not mean that you have to have a thesis. It's okay if you don't have a thesis. You can still get Fulbright. It can be any sort of research. I'm sure the project that you did required some sort of research as well, and you can definitely talk about that research, and that should be good. You do not need to be a published writer. You do not need to have a published thesis for you to be able to be considered for the Fulbright. Yeah, and then you can also make up for it. I wouldn't say if there's something to make up for, but you can also sort of um, push your case through other experiences that you've had as well, right? So it's okay if you don't have any thesis and you have a project. That's completely fine. You can definitely talk about the project as long as you learned from it, as long as it helps you advance your interests, go for it. How much are you, if you are from a background like Fata, then how much should be this fact? How much should this fact be highlighted? And does it give you an edge if you are from such a background? I mean, if you have certain experiences because of your location that advanced your research interests, then definitely talk about it. This can be covered more deeply in your personal statement because this is more of a personal experience. But if it's something that, helps to you to talk about your research interests, then definitely go for it. You can definitely talk about that. Um, for instance, if you want to pursue a degree that talks about access, access of electricity, then, you can talk about how, um, for instance, you come from an area that is primarily remote and how you would want to go back and help it advance to the point where there's, sustained source of electricity. So yeah, if that's how, if you feel it can help you, go for it. But I think this is more of a personal statement, sort of um, this should be added in your personal statement. About either areas we've been given attention or not. I would also like to know about either every SOB is being given attention or not. We can't really say anything about that. It is up to the reader how much attentive they are or how quickly they're going through your essays. So that is basically open to the reader. I mean, a reader can be extremely attentive or they can not be extremely attentive. So I mean, that is why it's important to make sure you get your point across as soon as you can and not just keep telling stories. That is why it's so important to be direct, to be specific as well. Um, so yeah. Uh, SOP word count. If I'm not wrong, it has to be around I would say 750 words. Um, that should be good enough. It should be specific. Publication is necessary for scholarship? No, it is not. A lot of people who I know applied without any publications. I applied without any publications and I was able to secure the scholarship. So no, it's not. Again, you do not need to be stellar. You do not need to have a stellar background. Can you elaborate key differences between personal statement and SOP? Yes, I did touch upon this in the beginning, but the idea here is that your personal statement, in fact, I'll go back to that slide so you can see it again. So there you go. You need to be able to differentiate between the two if you want to, ensure that you've written a good statement of purpose. Your personal statement's focus is more on your journey rather than your research. You don't talk about what kind of research you will do. You won't talk about the details of your research in your personal statement. You won't tell them that you want to adopt a qualitative research study or whether you want to do a quantitative research. You won't talk about like the specific elements or the specific topics that you'll be touching upon in your research in your personal statement. It's more of a personal narrative driven person that driven essay that sort of shows your who you are as a person, and why you plan to pursue Fulbright in a particular topic. You of course do mention your research interest and your academic goals, you touch upon those, but in order to do that, you back it by explaining your personal journey and you show them why you have turned into a person that plans on pursuing such and such research interests. So that is where your personal statement stops. Then you go on to explain those research interests in your statement of purpose. That is how it is. Um, so your personal statement, as the name suggests, is more personal. It talks about who you are and why this Fulbright program matters to you. And your statement of purpose is more like, why does this research matter to you? And how will you do this, right? And what will you do once you come back to Pakistan? And why Fulbright? Why America? right? So that is what it essentially does. Okay. I think I've answered all questions now. I hope this was a helpful and an informative session. Um, and good luck to all those who are planning on applying or those who are wrapping up their applications now that the deadline is near. Good luck and thank you so much for joining this session.
Thank you, Manu. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us today. Have a good weekend.